So, what we got? One person out there already. Right on. Good to see you. Thank you for joining in with us this afternoon. Thought I'd talk a little bit about the Federal Reserve and whether or not they can go insolvent, go bankrupt, essentially. The Federal Reserve, when they were first established, they were sold to the government as having the ability to expand the money supply when the economy was hot and then withdraw the money supply when the economy cooled down. They were going to give us an elastic money supply so that we could cruise through the business cycles without the wild dramatic swings and the unfortunate crashes that come with it. But it's just the nature of the beast when it comes to business cycles or even debt cycles or any cycle, really, when you think about it. But that's what the Federal Reserve was intended to do, was that, when things were heating up, because we had a limited money supply using gold, the amount of concentration of wealth would then start to constrain the amount of commerce that would take place out there. And that's why the Federal Reserve was like, hey, we could be here to inject money into the system so that everybody can still have plenty of money to continue on with the commerce. And then as the business cycle, slowed down, then they could pull that money back out. That was kind of like the whole idea behind it all. Well, nowadays it's not even close to the same thing because gold has been removed and everything is now debt-based. It gets very confusing because everybody's leveraged off of everybody else and everything's based off of an IOU. So, who owes who in the end? Is it the Treasury who's owed, or is it the Fed who owes, or is it the American people, the taxpayer? Or it gets so confusing in the end. I mean, basically, everything's down to an IOU, right? Everything is based off of a promise to pay. And that's where, the U.S. Treasuries are like the basis of all debt instruments out there. Because the U.S. Treasury is a promise to pay that is guaranteed. There's zero chance of default coming from the U.S. Treasury because we have the Federal Reserve, who has a printing press that can always pay any bill that the U.S. government has. Now, whether or not the purchasing power of that money is existing, that's a whole other story, right? That's entirely different topic. But the idea of actually paying the bill, there's no question. The U.S. Treasuries will always get paid. Now, what I find interesting is how this whole system operates, because the Federal Reserve is a private central bank, right? It's not part of the government. In a way, it's part of the government, but it's a private central bank. And it makes decisions independently of government. And that's really where, the Federal Reserve is very unique and different from all the rest of the central banks out there. Now, just to kind of keep things simple, the Federal Reserve has a balance sheet just like any other bank out there. And on that balance sheet, they have a lot of different things, but mainly it's U.S. Treasuries. And during the quantitative easing, they really loaded up on a lot of these treasuries. Now, my friend BP, he sent me an email asking me about this particular topic. He was just like, so the Federal Reserve, when interest rates were really low, would make a profit, right, from the U.S. Treasuries, because basically they're an interest-bearing asset, so they get paid, they have operating expenses, and what they do with the profit is it gets remittance back to the Treasury. So really, the Federal Reserve is like a little revenue maker, essentially, for the government. I mean, that's essentially what it comes down to. And although, the Federal Reserve is not meant to be this profiting organization or whatever, they do profit some. The problem that I have with the Federal Reserve and this non-profit thing that they have going, or any profit goes back to the U.S. Treasury, is that when you're an insider like the Federal Reserve, you can really get to make some pretty good calls on market behavior, on market conditions, on market directions. I mean, if you're the one who are setting interest rates and you're doing it ahead of time, man, that gives you some pretty good insights onto what stocks to pick. And, during the pandemic, there was a few Federal Reserve officials who got in trouble for insider trading, basically trading ahead of the knowledge or ahead of the information, and got in trouble for that very thing. So the Federal Reserve is not exactly like a I don't know, and it was like, like, I don't know how to say they are a manipulating organization, right? I don't want to try to say that they don't manipulate. They very much do, and the people within that industry have been caught doing that very thing. Now, something very interesting is happening right now. So when interest rates were really low, right, when the Federal Reserve was buying up all this debt, that was driving down the yields on all the government bonds, on the yields on junk bonds. It was driving the yields down on everything out there. And this is what was referred to as stimulating or supporting households and businesses out there. Now, everything is cool with that so long as the interest rates were staying low. Now, what I think a lot of people get confused about, and I know like it took me a while to kind of wrap my head around it when I was trying to figure out how the bond market worked, is that when interest rates go up, a lot of people think, okay, so now all the bondholders out there who are holding these bonds, they're getting a bigger return on those bonds that they have purchased. That's not the case, right? I mean, I'm sure there are some bonds out there that are adjustable rates or something like that. But for the most part, bonds have a fixed coupon rate, and what you purchase that bond for doesn't change the coupon. It doesn't change anything about what you're going to get as far as a yield return on it. So once you have purchased that bond, that's it. You own it. And whatever yield you get off of it, that's the yield you're going to receive. Now, if interest rates go up or the yields go up on all the existing bonds out there, what that means is that your bond that you hold, the price of it just went down, and what you'd be able to sell it for is now going to mean a loss to you. Right? That's really what that is saying. So the same thing that's happening to the Federal Reserve right now is the same thing like it happened to SVB. Right? They have assets and liabilities. And now when their assets begin to fall and their liabilities are more than their assets, now their credit ratings and, being able to pay their bills and everything else starts to fail. And that's exactly what we saw with SVB. Well, the Federal Reserve is experiencing something like that themselves, as they had purchased all these U.S. Treasuries when the yields were really low, meaning they paid a high price for them. Well, now the yields are starting to rise. Here's where the major problem is that the Fed could just hold on to those U.S. Treasuries and let them mature and roll off, and they'd be able to get their money back and the principal and the interest rates off of it. That part is fine, right? The problem that starts to exist is that they have raised interest rates on what they are paying out, like at the repo facility or the interest on excess reserves or the discount window, right? So now they have a portfolio that's paying them, right, the U.S. Treasuries, but the yield on it is really low. What they're paying out is starting to creep up and get a lot higher. So the return that the Federal Reserve is getting has actually gone negative. They are insolvent. They are not getting as much money back as they were paying out. And the remittance going back to the U.S. Treasury is now gone into deficit. So the Federal Reserve is now in debt to the Treasury, right? And what they're referring to this as deferred payments or something like that. So this isn't new. This has happened before, but it's not typical. Like typically the Federal Reserve would profit a little bit, and all that profit would go over to the Treasury. Now, something that I think is interesting about this is that everybody has this anticipation that the Federal Reserve is going to be lowering interest rates, which if they do, then the Federal Reserve would become profitable again. They would be able to repay back the Treasury all the stuff that they owe them and all that, and they can go back into the way they've been doing business. However, if the interest rates stay elevated like they are, this continues, right? And they owe ever increasing amounts to the Treasury, the Fed would, right? As the remittance, depletes ever increasingly more, as their portfolio on their asset side of their balance sheet continues to diminish. So I don't know if you guys are keeping this all wrapped up, but essentially the Federal Reserve right now is sitting in insolvency. Like they can't pay the Treasury, and in fact they owe the Treasury. So I'm thinking if this continues, right, if this elevated interest rates continue on into the future and the Fed keeps going deeper and deeper in debt to the Treasury, could it actually create a situation in which that it would just de facto end up being nationalized by the U.S. Treasury? Like, I mean, if they end up owing them that much because they aren't able to bring their balance sheet back up to a profitable position, they would just get absorbed by the U.S. Treasury, and then now all of a sudden, they're nationalized again. Now, I'm not saying that's what's happening here. I'm just saying that this continued, that very well could be the case. Anyway, Pretty good topic I thought to talk about today. How many we got out here? 263 with 54 likes. Thank you very much. Let's go cruising up there to that super chat. Thank you very much. Woo lad. Thank you very much for the $5, man. Still trying to buy an investment property, Simon, or just chilling? Cheers from Puget Sound. Thinking of buying here in a military town. Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I am sitting tight. I am not thinking of any investment outside of the occasional Bitcoin purchase, I contribute to a little stock portfolio. Neither one of these are much. It's like $50 a week or every other week if I have it. That is the only thing I'm doing. Everything else is going to a cash position, because I feel that there is going to be buying opportunities coming into the future. And I mean, what I mean by that, short term, like within the next year. A lot of people say holding on to cash is dumb, that, interest rates are high. You could park it into some kind of money market account or CD or something like that and get an interest rate off of it, or get some kind of return, which is totally true. But that's if you leave it in there for the entire year. And I'm thinking that there's going to be a buying opportunity coming within the year. So to me, being in the cash position is worth it to me, to have the convenience of being able to jump at those opportunities if they were to come up. As far as real estate and moving into properties, no, I'm not. It's not. It's not something that is like piquing my interest right now. I definitely keep an eye on these things. I mean, I would never pass up a good opportunity if it was to present itself. But as far as being like gung ho, this is what I'm doing. No, that's not what I'm doing right now. All right, so let's cruise back up here to the top. Hiya, fellas. Good evening from Lakeland, Florida. Well, hey, good evening, Kevin. It's good to see you here, man. All right, hey, UE, howdy. Wasn't coming is going to be bad. Wasn't coming is going to be bad. Huh. All right, hello from Iowa. OPZ, you are right. All right. Hi, Simon. Hey, Lumberjack Landlord. Good to see you, Matthew. UE on Sunday. Sweet. Yeah, I'm going to be out here for, 45 minutes to an hour or so. Make sure you have cash and precious metals, food, and water for sure. Use your money printer. Go, Bert. All right. What's up, brother? Hope you're doing well. All right. Hi. This world is going to crap. They have the biggest bazooka of them all. Back to where it came from, them pure Gasu? Silver BTC gold, save yourself. Then, all right, let's talk about QE. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, is QE coming? I mean, there is I guess, ultimately with the change in what's happened here with the banking failures, or the crisis that is happening with that quick change to what the Federal Reserve is doing with their balance sheet, that bank term funding program, I think, after, because the bank term funding program goes for a year, and then I think they have a year to pay it back. So this could be like a 2-year long program, essentially, from the time that it had started till the time that the very last loan could be paid back. So I'd imagine this balance sheet adjustment that you see to the Federal Reserve is probably going to continue with that obscurity for the next 2 years. In fact, we could probably see, I would imagine that the Federal Reserve is going to continue on with their monetary tightening, right? But how they mess with that, with the balance sheet, and trying to keep the banks from going into ultimate failure with the contagion, right? Because one bank starts to fail, then it starts bleeding into other banks. What it is that they set up in order to provide the funding, the liquidity to these banks in time, to prevent that contagion from happening. This bank term funding program, it gives banks quick liquidity. They're like, oh crap, we need cash, right? And so how do you get cash? You sell some assets, right? Well, they're saying, hey, don't sell the assets, because if you start selling assets, everybody else starts selling assets, and then the price of them starts to fall and everybody starts to lose, right? So this is the contagion. So the Federal Reserve is trying to stop that from happening by offering up that bank term funding program, where they will loan money to people for those assets, saying hey, don't sell those things, use it as collateral, and we'll give you funding for that. And so with that, little idea right there, how much can they expand on that if that becomes permanent? These are questions that are really like we need to figure out. That's why a lot of times when I see stuff like this happening, I have to back away to see if this is now a permanent strategy or if it is temporary, or what it is that they're trying to cover up with it, or what the credible threat might be. Like, is it like like the special purpose vehicles and the corporate debt lending facility? Thank you. Where was that super chat? Did I miss it? Oop, there it is. Thank you, above my pay grade. Hey, man, right on. Thank you for the $1.99. Keep crushing it. Well, thank you very much, man. Will do. Above my pay grade. If you haven't checked out his YouTube channel, you should. We went and did a great interview a few weeks back. And, you sent me that book, The White Pill, and I haven't cracked it yet, but I really do want to. I've been reading, I've been reading a book with my kid, Who Moved My Cheese. I don't know if you ever read that self-help book about like how to deal with change. Anyway, it's a really good one, and so Freddie and I have been reading that one together. The Fed didn't realize the maturities of their mortgage-backed security holdings would extend as rates go up. Because people will sit on their mortgage much longer now, that rates went higher than most people thought. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm still kind of curious on that one, because what I find very interesting about the mortgage rates out there is that when you see bad news, mortgage rates go down. Isn't that funny? Like, good news is bad and bad news is good, and this is the way it's been for quite some time, because what bad news does is it triggers the market into thinking that the Fed is going to react to deal with the bad news, right? So it's just like the worse the news get, the bigger the idea that the Federal Reserve is going to be lowering interest rates, which is good for the markets, because then they get lower interest rates to buy houses with or whatever. I mean, it's just like this really backwards way of thinking about it, but that's essentially what ends up happening. So the worse the news gets, it's like almost good for the markets. It's like, it's strange, right? Hyperinflation is just around the corner. I don't think so. Like, I think there's going to be more of a deflationary battle coming up, and that the Federal Reserve is going to have to deal with that. The hyperinflation scenario, like, I could see it in one particular way. Like, I could definitely see a hyperinflation scenario if you have the world abandon the dollar. Like, they would have to straight up abandon the dollar in every way. And on that way to abandoning, gosh, I have a hard time with that word. And on the way to abandoning the dollar, it would actually cause the dollar to grow in strength before the hyperinflation actually took place. And this is very backwards thinking, logic, when you try to think of it logically. But really, you have to think like the dollar is a world reserve currency. And as a world reserve currency, people write debts in dollars that don't have anything to do with the United States, not our governments, not our corporations, not our banking systems, nothing to do with the United States at all. But these contracts are due in US dollars. And then when these contracts get written, they get used as if they're US dollars. So the moment that everybody around the world wants to get out of dollars, they actually have to try and acquire those dollars for real in order to get out of a lot of those debts. And then once those debts disappear, that is dollars that are being used around the world disappearing as well. So not only is there a demand for dollars to get rid of the debt, but then but then when the debt disappears, that removes dollars from the system as well. So all this removal of debt is actually diminishing the amount of dollars that are in the system, which would strengthen the dollar. So even getting out of the dollar would mean that there would be a strengthening of the dollar. And for a hyperinflation scenario to happen, that means all the dollars around the world would come flying back to the United States. And in order for that to happen, you got to get out of those debts first. Getting out of the debts would strengthen the dollar, right? You see how this is happening here? So once you get through all the strengthening of the dollar, getting out of all those debts, and nobody's writing any more debts, and nobody's taking any more contracts in dollars, and nobody's accepting dollars, then all those dollars come flying back to the United States, and we may have the hyperinflation scenario. Man, that is a long ways away, right? That is a long road to follow in order to get to that hyperinflation. Now, that's my opinion on it. A lot of other people say, nope, you're wrong, whatever. That's how I see the hyperinflation scenario taking place, and I don't see evidence of it happening right now. Did I get another one? Yes, I did. Thank you very much. Reflect the Sun for the $5. Termination Shock by Neil Stephenson is a good read. All right, well, we'll have to check it out. Dr. Spencer Johnson, or they have been doing 40s for almost 2 years now. Third world country with Gucci belt, America. So all my credit cards will be just closed one day? All your credit cards will be closed one day. No, I don't know why that would happen. I mean, a lot of people keep talking about a debt jubilee. Like, I've heard a lot of talk of debt jubilee, and then now all of a sudden nobody talks about it anymore because it didn't happen or something. I don't know. But like, the only, like, in Canada, I remember there was a bunch of debt that got, like, you know, just wiped clean. Like, a bunch of people had credit cards and they were like, hey, you don't owe this debt anymore. I think that's very rare for something like that to happen, you know, for a bank to just write off all this, you know, all this bad debt to just get it off their books, right? I mean, it can happen. They would just like rather just take a loss on it than have it any longer, which is, you know, something to think about. But most of the time, people would be willing to take that on. Like, they would be like, man, I'll take the risk. I'll try and get that debt back out of it, like a debt collector or something like that. You know, you buy it for cheap and then try and get more out of it. So even with the credit card debt, like, you have to think, even if you were with the bank and you had this credit card with them and the bank goes bankrupt, right? And you're like, haha, I had this credit card with you guys and you guys are bankrupt, I don't owe you anymore. Your debt to that bank is an asset, right? Not to you, but to the bank, right? And now the bank is going to try and sell off all these assets, including your debt. Now, it may end up getting sold for cheap to somebody else. You still owe it. Right? You still owe the debt. And that's really where the problem ends up being, that, you know, a lot of people think, well, if the bank goes bankrupt, I don't owe them anymore. But that's not true, because you created an instrument of debt that can be sold. And that's an asset for the banking system. All right, I just started stacking silver. It's been fun so far. Hey, well, good for you. V300, stacking silver is an excellent way to save money, you know. It's funny because I just paid my tax and did my tax file, did the taxes thing. And man, I am not somebody who is like really business minded or anything like that, which is kind of funny, you know, talking all this macroeconomic stuff. But as far as like actually like doing like accounting and bookkeeping and different things like that, is like, this is not even my game. Like, I'm not like interested in any of that stuff. But something that I found like, you know, really funny is that if you don't save your money into something, like if you don't put it towards an investment, you know, put it towards some sort of assets or something else out there, it is amazing. Like, the universe tries to take it all from you. So you got to do something with it. And putting it towards silver is like an excellent way of going about it, because once it's in silver form, it's not like it's difficult to get it back into cash. It's just that you don't really want to, right? And you'll find other ways of paying your bills or coming up with, you know, whatever it is that you need. And purchasing it into silver just kind of secures that savings, and like almost kind of like freezes it into something that you can't lose or won't get rid of. I mean, I guess you could lose it, but you're not going to lose it from like a bank failure or something. All good. I just watched that stuff, as you can imagine. All right. Hyperinflation guys need to get off the Twitter. There is a lot of money out there, yet I work in construction and the Biden money hasn't really hit yet. I'm still curious about that. I mean, I wouldn't know. What is Biden money? I don't know what that is. Is that all the stimulus, all those fiscal stimulus stuff, right? Because all that is going to get really, really bad here before too long. In fact, I'm going to try and do a video on this one. The real inequality, or the real crisis, is inequality, right? The more inequality that you have as far as like the pay gap, the inequality of wealth, the bigger that you have, the bigger the crisis that follows from it. And we have had the biggest spike in inequality that I think the country has ever seen since like I don't know, what, in 100 years or whatever it was. It's amazing to think, like, when everybody got these stimulus checks and enhanced unemployment and all this other stuff, they weren't working, they weren't paying rent, they weren't, paying mortgage. It was just like all this opportunity for them to really advance themselves got blown on like cars and TVs and, things to make their life better when they were stuck at home. Meanwhile, the rich got way rich, like way, way rich. And so although like the pay increases and, like the savings of Americans and stuff had gone up, the the rich elite like shot off like a rocket, leaving us behind. And so the fallout from this is going to be quite extreme. And that's really what I want to get into. There's a nice long Fed report on this. It's like 60 pages long. And I've been trying to read through this, and it is so dull and boring, and it's hard to get through this thing. But anyway, it basically breaks down how this inequality gap and the rise in inequality creates a bigger financial crisis afterwards. And anyway, I thought it would be a good video to do here coming in the future if I can get through this damn report. The dollar is still much, much stronger than most currencies. It could lose 20% or so and still be above where it was in 2021. Yeah, and I think that's really where, like, I think a lot of people just, it's because it is so confusing out there, right? Like, how the monetary system works, how the dollar comparatively to a basket of world currency, because like here in the United States, we don't really think about like our monetary policies being like globally, being part of the global economy as well. Like we know that our dollar is like used as world reserve currency or world trade and stuff, but most Americans are so like focused in on just ourselves, like just our country, just our politics and just our economy, that we forget that the Federal Reserve does have the, responsibility of dealing with the world reserve currency as well. And that is like where a lot of people just like kind of shove that thing out of their mind. Like they don't take on the Fed and their strategies incorporating the world reserve currency and maintaining that currency and not creating too much like disruption within the world government trade or global trades and stuff like that. I mean, there's no way that the Fed's actions don't have that kind of impact out there. I mean, you see when the Fed was tightening up monetary policy, you saw how many countries almost immediately, like Sri Lanka, we were doing reports on Sri Lanka, they almost immediately went into bankruptcy, just simply because all their debt was held in US dollars, right? So they issue out debt in dollars, and then when COVID hit and all the tourism fell and all their little industries that they had were no longer bringing any dollars in, they couldn't make their debt payments, and trying to bring in food and medical became very difficult for them, and they all started just flipping out. It was a sad story. Anyhow, let's move on. Did I get another super chat down there? I did. Thank you very much, Matthew, for the $5. The gap in inequality is based on assets. When bad economies come, the rich buy more on sale assets that create more cash. And that's really what it comes down to. Like, when you think about how it is that they're going to maintain this system, like, a lot of people just think, okay, so the system is going to completely fail, right? And if that's the case, then you have to be like 100% gold, silver, cryptos, bullets, guns, food, stuff like that, like completely out of the banking system and anything that's tied to it. You have to be completely out of that stuff if you're thinking that there's going to be a complete failure. However, if you don't think that there's going to be a complete failure, how do they keep it going? Now, that's going to be a very interesting question, because we are right now down, well, the Federal Reserve has done much better at getting the Fed funds rate up to that 5% level, which is where they really need their ammo to be in order to combat the next recession. But if you go and read most of their papers, they are terribly, terribly worried about what they refer to as the effective lower bound, which is zero, where, the dropping of interest rates is no longer stimulating the economy, or you run into the lower bound of zero and you go negative. Now, this is really interesting to think about, because if they were to continue to stimulate the economy, how do they do it? like dropping interest rates get people to go out there and borrow money, which is a good way to get the economy stimulated, right? People go out there, buy cars, houses, do all the stuff that, people do with their debts. But then when it gets down to a certain point, that how do you get people to take on more debt? Like, how do you take on more debt, go buy a house or car, right? And you're like, I'm already debt saturated. I got student debt, house, cars, I got all my debt. Like, I can't take on any more debt. And they're like, man, you need to take on more debt because this economy doesn't work unless people are taking on ever-increasing amounts of it. And if you don't take on any ever-increasing amounts of it, we're, the government, are just going to have to take on that debt ourselves and just hand it to you, right? Because we need you to start spending this money. Here's your UBI. Go out there and spend this stuff. And that's really where I think that they're going to try and hold on to the system. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh man, this UBI, it's totally going to ruin the whole thing. I think the whole thing is ruined anyway, and this is the only way that they're able to keep it going, is to pay it off, and is to pay the people, the lower end, right, to inject that money right to them. Because if they do it any other way, the rich are going to continue to, the inequality is going to continue to grow, and then the crisis will get even worse, right? So this is what they're trying to do, is prevent that crisis, that inequality from growing worse, because it's going to continue. And so they're like, oh crap, we better start feeding the lower end money so that this inequality doesn't get to like grow exponentially worse, All right, anyway, I have no debt and would never want any debts, mortgages if I had to. I don't want debts either, but I do like living in a house. And considering how difficult it is to try and buy a house right now, like I don't even think I could get a house right now. With the conditions, like the interest rates that they are, like if I had to put a down payment on like even my current house that's existing right now from the ZELLE estimate, I do not think I could buy my own house that I'm living in right now for the last year. So I'm pretty happy about being in this house. I mean, it gives me, I'm in a nice neighborhood. It's a comfortable place. The payment's almost like rent. But again, I think there's going to be buying opportunities coming into the future. So, all right, if you buy gold now, is it at a premium? Then you will have to sell low. It's manipulated just like the dollar. Absolutely it is. Dollar cost average into everything you do. Like, I mean, I dollar cost average. I don't know. I'm a terrible market timer, so I don't try timing the market anymore. I just buy a little bit all the time, and I don't stress about how much I paid for any of it. I don't care what my average is on my silver bullion. Like, I don't care what the average, per ounce is. Only thing I care about is how many ounces do I have, and if I can get more. That's the only thing I really care about, because the number itself doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything in the sense that if you have as much paper derivatives, all the paper silver that is out there, when you consider that into it, then it doesn't give you an accurate price. In fact, it puts silver much lower than what it should be. I mean, just compare it to gold. They pull it out of the ground 10 to 1 to gold, right? Most gold goes into vaults, and 50% of silver goes to industrial use. So now really it's a 5 to 1 ratio for investment purposes to gold. But yet gold is here at almost $2,000 an ounce. And at a 10 to 1 ratio, it should put silver at $200. It should be 10 times higher than what it is at current rate right now. The price of silver should be. So all the room in the world for silver to go up is present, right? Downward risk is very minimal in silver, right? I mean, could it happen? Sure, yeah. I mean, there's always downside risk to everything out there. But considering that silver is less than 50% of its all-time high that was achieved back in the early 80s, and, the ratio, the industrial demand, the loss of confidence in the dollar, I mean, I can't think of anything else out there that is as good of an idea to put your money to other than silver. Like, I cannot think of anything else out there. So even at a high premium, I think right now it's still a really good price. I mean, even if you're paying $5 over spot price for it, that's still like pretty close to 50% of its all-time high. Yeah, I mean, it's like really cheap, Infamous NYC, thank you very much for the $2. Still seeing crack houses for $300 in Pittsburgh. All right. Buy silver and forget about it. Never plan to sell it. Yeah, that's what I do. I mean, I do the same thing. I do occasionally will give some silver away for gifts. Like I like the Monarch sugar skulls. They're like these little Day of the Dead, skulls. They look like hand pours, and they're pretty cool, little unique pieces. And so I like to buy those and give those away for gifts. But that's the only silver I ever let go of is the stuff for gifts. Okay, in the 1930s, U.S. defaulted on public and private debt, basically bankrupt. Well, yeah, but then okay, so again, like that's when they, did the gold confiscation and readjusted everything. I mean, the country has essentially been bankrupt since the Fed, right? Since the establishment of the Fed. I mean, anytime you ever like print up dollars to pay a bill, that's you claiming you can't do it. Like, I mean, either you can pay the bills or you can't. Like, I can't pay the bills. And I was just like, well, you better take out some debt to pay the bills, right? So anytime that ever happens, then technically you're insolvent. You can't pay your bills. So we've always operated in this fashion. What it leads to, how long can we continue on with it, and what it does for inequality. I mean, this is all the stuff that we're learning from it. Like, I can't imagine how much separation is going to be in like the next 50 years if they're able to move into UBI or something like that. I mean, you think it's bad now, it's going to get really bad. I mean, think about like some of the money that people have. I mean, some people have like just an insane amount of money. It's just like a ridiculous amount. And you got other people out there who don't understand money at all, don't understand how it works, don't understand how it is that you need, what it is to earn it. And they struggle so much in their life. It is just ridiculous on how much they struggle to try and, just make ends meet and deal with, raising kids and stuff like that. It's just, it's insane. And I don't know, like, I mean, is it a good or bad thing? Like, you think about it, the standard of living has definitely increased for everybody, but the inequality grows ever increasingly worse. And now, is that a bad thing? I mean, it was just like, so they're rich. Yeah, they're super, super rich. And we all got a good standard of living out of it. I don't know. It estimated that half the silver ever mined has been returned to the earth in landfills. Yeah, see, that's even another reason. 50% of it's only 50% is available. Okay, 40 pounds of silver in a Tomahawk missile. 40 pounds? Holy crap. All right. You paid for the taco, therefore people can afford it. Hi, you just don't get why the euro didn't spike. Don't get why the euro didn't spike? I don't know. I mean, are you talking like over the course of the last couple of years? I mean, you have to really, like, what it comes down to is a fear factor, right? Is that even though here in the United States we're fearful, like a lot of people are fearful of the dollar, like the dollar go bye-bye kind of thing, the rest of the world loves the dollar, like absolutely loves the dollar. And if they get concerned about their own sovereign nation, or they're worried about their corporations, their stock market, whatever it is that they got going on, they run to the safe haven. And the safe haven is things that are going on in the United States, mainly the US dollar or the US treasuries. And so that's another reason, like, the Federal Reserve, when they go to unwind this gigantic balance sheet of theirs, and people are like, oh man, the government's not going to be able to afford it, blah, 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 all this stuff comes out. A lot of people don't take into consideration like how much demand for the US treasuries exist outside of the United States. Like, when you're doing world trade and you're using dollars, like a lot of times you're not even using dollars, you're using US treasuries because they're almost as good as dollars. Like, they can be used like world reserve currency themselves. And so anyway, US treasuries end up getting used a lot. And so the demand for US treasuries just to do commerce, starts to, like, when that commerce starts to fall, then the demand for US treasuries falls. But when commerce picks up, then the demand for treasuries starts to pick up as well. I mean, all these things, like, there are so many little parts and pieces to the economy to try and think about. It's just like, it's very difficult to wrap your head around all this stuff, I guess. So if the dollar fails, where do you move your money to? What's the next big thing to move into to protect yourself? Gold, silver. Gold, silver, cryptocurrencies. That's the only place you really can move to. Or, physical items. I mean, just spend all your money on the things that you're going to need in your life, and then, you'll have them. But as far as like transitioning into the cryptocurrencies or something like that, or into a central bank digital currency, I don't think anybody's going to even notice. Like, I think if you're not paying attention to the monetary system, to the central banks, to all this stuff, you will not even recognize that the central bank digital currency had been switched on. No, like you won't even notice, except that you don't have cash in your hand anymore. But people will be like, "No, I use debit card. I got my bank account. I use my phone for all my transactions or whatever. I don't have any idea about the central bank digital currency." Or that they had been switched over and didn't even realize it. Now that's the way I think most people are going to end up doing it. They're going to be like, I'm not going to participate in this whole central bank digital currency bull. If you pay a bill, if you file taxes, if you have a job, if you get like all this stuff is going to be like just automatic. Like it's going to go right into the banking system, and that's all you get is central bank digital currency after that. So yeah, whatever it is that you can do to get out of that, I mean, gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, physical items. All right, those skulls do look cool. Yeah, they do. They're really cool. All right, most indebted country in the world. Yeah, real estate, gold, silver. Does he have? Oh, he's from always sitting like that. Yeah, sometimes my back does hurt from sitting like this, but I don't always sit like this. I only do it for an hour or so when I'm doing this. All right, first generation Tacoma with an aftermarket visor. I was told the 3 L's: land, lead, and like-minded people. Yeah, that's for sure. All right. When the currency is worthless, the rich will be poor. They tore up the road to fix the water main, but can't afford to repave it. Yeah, broke. Somehow we're giving billions of wars, though. Giving billions for wars, though. Well, yeah, but wars are profitable and money makers. I mean, that's, like, you think about like back in the day, like how do you get new money to come into your system? Like think back prior to like all the modern day warfare and stuff. You go all the way back to like the Roman days and stuff, and they're conquering countries and just going from like area to area, just taking over all the ports and the commodities and everything that's there. I mean, you think about what it is that they were trying to do with these war efforts, right? Like they're trying to figure out a way to bring a constant new money into their system. And because of the way that the system works, when you have new money flowing in, if you have continuous new money flowing into the system, what you end up doing is you're driving out all the domestic manufacturing, all the domestic stuff that you have going on that generates cash. And so what it takes is ever increasing amounts of war effort in order to bring in the new money, in order to purchase all those foreign goods to keep the standard of living going, or to keep the standards up in that original country, right? So that's why wars just kept growing bigger and bigger and bigger, is because they had to keep these like constant stream of new money coming in. And since they didn't do any domestic manufacturing for themselves, but only had foreign imports coming in, it eventually got to a point where you couldn't expand your war efforts anymore, and then it all collapses. Right? And so, yeah, war is a very profitable thing. All right, what up, UE? Does the U.S. have a lot of assets globally? I would imagine that they do, but they got a lot of debt as well. So, I mean, what is an asset when it's leveraged by debt? Like, you think about it. Here are these, like, take the Belt and Road Initiative, like prior to, even like right now, but it's still taking place. But you take this Belt and Road Initiative. You got China, who is investing in like ports and highways and all kinds of stuff in countries that are not theirs, right? Doing it in Africa, doing it all over the place, doing it all over Asia. and they're figuring out this, this system of global trade, and they invest all this time and effort into it. Now, the debt itself of that country, right, is what's due back to China. Right? So they basically, China loaned them the money to build these things. But now they can't pay back China for all this stuff, and China says, hey, that's cool, and now belongs to us. Right? So this is a pretty interesting way of going about, like, taking the natural resources of countries. If you could just, like, hey, you need a port, we'll loan you the money for port. You need a highway, we'll loan you the money. You got that mine over there, hey, we'll get you that mine up and operational. Here's some money to do it. Oh, you can't pay it back? Oh, that's too bad. I guess that's ours, right? So, that's what the United States did for the longest time. Now, whether or not that's, like, going to continue to be a viable thing that can, like, just take over all the world's assets, because essentially you would just have to keep growing and growing and growing and taking more and more in order to be successful, because the moment that you're not growing anymore, then you start to fail. So do they have, like, how much assets? Oh, I don't know, a lot. $5, no, from Lumberjack, thank you. No one is buying assets with cash flow on UBI. No, that's for sure. Thank you very much, Matthew, for the $5. Wow, so many comments. You guys are awesome. All right. Oh, here we go. $10 from Yakazua Chris 10. Thank you very much for the $10. Once hyperinflation hits, everyone will be a millionaire. Be careful what you wish for. UE, why hasn't Congress addressed the issue? They brought Yellen in and got no answer. Interesting. What do you think could be done about it? How address the issue? How do you deal with it? Like, this is something that I've, like, a lot of people are like, man, this is bad. We got to do something about all this. Like, what do we do? Right? To me, I don't see what it is that, like, hey, Congress, deal with this issue. And I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, that'll be fun. Let's watch that. What are you guys gonna do? What are you guys gonna do about that? Because I'd like to know. Because I don't know what it is that you're gonna do about this, because it's either extremely painful for the people, or we go into more debt, more separation between the rich and the poor, more of what we've experienced, right? There's nothing Congress can do, right? They can mitigate a lot of, like, the feelings that we have. It could be like, oh, hey, we're going to do something about this, and doesn't it make you feel better that we're going to try and do something about it? But ultimately, there's really nothing that we can do about it, and everybody is going to suffer in poverty at some point in their life, right? Now, that I shouldn't say it like that, because we might be able to get through a lifetime without the complete collapse of it, especially if we move into, like, a UBI digital currency. Who knows how long it can go? And if you can go into negative interest rates, well, shit, you can go, very deep into negative interest rates. So I shouldn't say, like, everybody's going to fall into poverty. It's just that if you try to fix the issue, if that's, like, an actual thing, like fixing it, I don't know what a fix would be. But if you were to, like, reverse what it is that we have going on right now, that means that everybody would have to suffer with some, you'd have to work twice as hard as what you're doing for, half as much, right? And nobody's going to do that. When you consider that most of the world operates on, like, $2 a day, right? So if you can imagine, like, Americans trying to just deal on half of what they have right now, let alone, like, a quarter or even less of that, that's what it would take to, like, fix the system. Otherwise, we just have to continue deeper into debt. This is the only direction you can really go. If you're not if you don't produce, right? We don't produce enough. Right? We produce stuff. I mean, we produce a lot of food. I guess that we have a lot of agricultural products and stuff, but we don't produce a lot of stuff like China produces, And so if you're not producing a lot of things, if you don't have new money coming into the system, then you're not going to be able to buy those foreign products. And if you can't buy the foreign products, then you have nothing to sell here in the United States. And if we're not selling a bunch of stuff because we're a consumer-based economy, we start to fail. So we actually need to have a bunch of crap made outside of this country shipped here so that we can actually have jobs. Right? Isn't that weird? It's the weirdest thing to think of. If we had manufacturing going here, it would be a much different story. We could produce stuff and sell it to the rest of the world, but we don't do that, right? We have to borrow money from the rest of the world and then buy their crap with it so that we can sell it to each other. Scary way to think about it. All right. My first live. Hello, everyone. Well, thank you, cannabis epidemiologist. Epidemiology whizzes. Thanks for being here, brother. All right. Ports in countries closer to the U.S. make China's Navy more viable. Hi, Yui. I never get a chance to say hello because of the OZ-US time difference. Be careful of your back in your job. If it goes, it's forever, mate. Yeah. And that's something that I think about quite a bit. That's why it's important to have, if you're a job, like having just a single source of income really leaves you pretty vulnerable to the cases out there. Like, even if you have like a small side gig, at least it's something, right? I mean, at least it's something that you can have to try and deal with the fact that you don't have any other income going on. But when you lose your job and it's the only source of income that you have, man, is that a bad feeling to have. It's a devastating feeling. And so I think about that quite a bit. That's why I try and, have many, like not many, but try to get more sources of revenue, even if it's just small, like even if it's just a little tiny, $20 or something like that, $10, even $2, it doesn't matter. Just try and go out there and get some sort of money. Like if you could go out there and not have a job, like a lot of people, this is something I've talked about before, is that, if you are like stuck, you're like, man, I need some money, right? But the only way you know how to make money is to wait till 8 o'clock in the morning when your job starts again. And that's the only way you know how to get any cash, like any kind of money, is you have to wait till 8 o'clock and then you work till 5. And then after that, you got to wait till 8 o'clock in the morning again. That's the problem, right? Being able to just like, okay, it's the weekend. I need to figure out a way to go get some money. I need to figure out a way to sell something online. I need to figure out how to produce something, whatever it is, right? And then be able to actually go out there and acquire the money. That right there makes a huge difference. And it doesn't even have to be a lot. Like it's nice if it's a lot of money, but it doesn't have to be a lot. What you have to have is the ability to do it, right? Because if you have the ability to do it, it puts you in a much different mindset. And that mindset gives you the ability to now start going off there and, trying to take on better risks or, be more business minded or anything else like that. But when you are stuck at like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. I got to figure this out. Oh, God, I wish, 8 o'clock doesn't start another, and you're trying to figure out how to make money and you don't know how until 8 o'clock starts again. That gets very frustrating. And so that's where like having multiple streams of income, even if it's just small amounts, and then being able to go off there and do it at any time. Like, I'm like middle of the night, hey, let's go see if we can make some money. I mean, that right there is really, I think, bigger than trying to have like some high paying job or something like that. Because a lot of times if you have some high paying job, some high status job, it comes with a lot of stress and responsibility and time, and you can't give up on any of that stuff. And, you get all these things like, you're making all this money and you can't give up making the money. So you got to take on all this responsibility and you got to go all this stress to go with it. And your family doesn't like you because of it and all the other crap that happens, and it's just like, man, why did I do all this stuff? It gets very, complicated out on it all. That's why, try and keep life easy, try and make it, simple, try and get like, multiple streams of income that are, even simple, easy ones to do. And you don't have to make a lot of money. It'll make your life so much better, it's just in general. Wow, 600 of you up in here? That is awesome, man. It's so cool to see you. We were talking about Federal Reserve insolvency. I don't know where we got off track a little bit here. Thank you very much, Andy, for the $1.99. Hyperinflation means it's easier to pay off debt. Yeah, I guess if you stand still with your debt, like, as long as you don't take on any more debt, but the whole like hyperinflation is probably meaning that the country is going deeper in the debt in order to produce the dollars that you need in order to have the hyperinflation happen. So, I mean, I guess for an individual during the hyperinflation, if they are able to, get out of their debts and then acquire assets during that time so that, when the whole system collapses, they can restart again with their assets that they have that has been outside of the system. Yeah, I can understand all that, like using that. But for the most part, a hyperinflation scenario is pretty much devastating for everybody. Thank you very much. PM Galleria. Yes, man. $5. In ancient Samaria, a month's wages was a quarter ounce of silver. A healthy male slave sold for 2.5 ounces. Unfortunately, what once was will be again. Nothing new. Well, thank you very much, PM Galleria, for the $5. And thank you very much for the comment. Just to let you guys know out there who are viewers, PM Galleria sent me a wonderful painting that he had done this. It was actually of the cab, right, with the dice and the mirror. And what he does is really cool. Is he takes actual silver and incorporates that into the artwork. So the artwork itself has an ounce of silver like right on it, which is like very unique and very cool. So thank you very much, PM Galleria, for that piece. It was really cool of you. All right. John Velasquez, thank you very much for the $1.99. You a fan of the gold mining stocks too? Yes. Yes, I am. I am a fan of gold mining stocks. Now, what mines, what stock, where, again, you're going to have to do all your own research on all that stuff. But when it comes to being in the precious metals game, right? Precious metals have two people who purchase: investors and speculators. If you are buying physical, you are a speculator, right? There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You are buying a piece of metal that doesn't pay an interest. The only thing you're anticipating is that you're going to be able to sell it off in the future for a higher price. That is the greater fool theory, right? Where you buy it cheap, sell it off high. Now, a lot of people get upset when they hear this, thinking that if you buy gold, you're a fool, or selling it, if you're buying it at a high price, you're a fool, or something like that. That's not what it's trying to say. Is that what you're trying to do is sell it off at a higher price. The item itself doesn't change. The business of it doesn't change. The interest doesn't change. Nothing changes about it, right? And so therefore it's a dumb asset, right? It's just what it's called. You're not dumb for buying it. It's dumb because it doesn't do anything. It just sits there, right? So investment into a gold miner, right? Somebody who's actually going to extract that gold and sell it. That's a process, right? He has a business, he has, equipment and all kinds of people to hire. And, with this, he is able to extract out of the ground a product that he could sell for a profit. Now, if you find the right miner during the right times, when gold is moving up in price, some miners can do quite well, especially if they are like some of the junior miners who really hit the mother loads as far as some of their explorations that they are doing. These are like, possibilities that are like way out there. However, there's some pretty well established mines, and when the price of gold moves up, these miners do quite well. And that is an investment when you are, putting your money towards a business of somebody who is going to be profitable with it. Like, to me, that is a very good investment, especially during a time of uncertainty where you have a lot of people who are going to be moving into precious metals. If you have the world moving into precious metals, those miners will do very well. And yeah, so I'm a big fan of them. But then quite opposite on the other side, they can also do quite poorly when, monetary policy has people in favor of taking out debt and moving into, interest-bearing accounts and stuff like that. And they're moving out of the safe havens and moving into more of the risk-taking kind of areas. Then gold and gold miners will not do well at all in those situations. So, you got to be vigilant on your timing and your research, All right. Okay. Thanks for the live Uneducated Economist. Gonna rewind so I can watch with no ads. All right, thumbs up, everyone. Came in late. Well, thank you very much for being here. What is that? Gina? Genia? Gina? All right. Hey, all right, all-nighter. Hit the like for the awesome ear candy. Well, thanks for being here, brother. All right. Does this guy have a job? Do I have a job? Yes, I have. I work at a lumber yard. I do retail sales for a living. And actually, I'm doing quite well considering the amount of retail, because we had a few people leave the store recently. Some of I had like my counterpart, who would do like a lot of the special orders and stuff that I do at the store. He left the company, and now I'm getting a lot more orders because I'm picking up what he's no longer there to fill. And man, Mike doing a lot of sales right now. It's just really kicking it. So yeah, I do retail sales. Then I also do YouTube, which is a lot of fun. And then I also call bingo, which I'm going to be doing here in a few hours. So if you happen to be in the Astoria area, why don't you head on over to the Workers tonight and play some bingo with us tonight. It starts at 6:30. Yeah. So I have a job. I work all the time, man. I work from the time I get up till the time I go to bed. Like, literally, I get up and I force myself not to look at the phone for 30 minutes. Like, I will not pick up my phone for the first half hour. And then I am either looking at emails or articles or answering emails or just doing something pretty much all the time, like nonstop, unless I'm at my day job calling bingo or trying to do some kind of like engagement with the family. If we're doing something there, then I will put the phone down for that. But I have a hard time sitting through a movie. TV shows, like, I will not watch TV. I don't even have cable or anything like that. Like, a movie is difficult for me, because I'd rather be working. I'd rather be like looking up the next article, researching, answering an email, doing something like that. So really, from the time I get up till the time I go to bed, I am pretty much always working. Sometimes harder than others, but or at times harder than others. But yeah, like, if you ever slow down, then what are you gonna get? Like, you miss out. You miss out on opportunities. You miss out on all kinds of stuff. I mean, a lot of times, like, you're like, aren't you going to miss the family or something like that? Yeah, like, that happens, but it's not like intentional. It's not like it's, like I'm avoiding them or something like that. But the consequences that I feel from not performing are far worse. Right? Because when I was a broke ass, it was very difficult to try and take care of the family and provide and do all the other things. Now life is much different, and I think the family is much happier for it and everything else. So yeah, I mean, is the money worth it? I mean, the time and stuff to get it? Yeah, I mean, it is, because the alternative is far worse. Yeah. Hey, thank you very much. What does that? Reflect the Sun for the $20. Very cool. U.S. Forest Service observed fir tree die-offs covering 1.3 million acres. Now El Nino confirmed for Washington, Oregon. We're set to have the worst forest fires in history. What would you do? I don't know. Like, I guess we're gonna have to wait till it happens there. I can definitely see it. Like, they're talking about a lot of shutdown of the forestry industry here in my area, just in my county. There's a lot of people talking about it, and of course, we're a heavily logging, fishing community here, so anything that has to do with the forest industry is very impactful. So anyway, I don't know. We're gonna see what comes from it. As far as like this major die-off, I haven't heard any kind of impact reporting happening to, like, the mills or the industry or anything like that. In fact, I haven't even really heard about that at all. Like, it's not a buzz or anything going on. No currency survives over time except gold and silver. Rome, perfect example. By AD 170 $170 was 75% silver and only 60% silver by AD 200, and AD 270 finally reduced to 5% silver. Sorry, man, I didn't mean to cut that off. What would I do? I don't know, like you talking like if I had to switch industries or something like that? Like, I don't know. Like, if I ever had been forced into another industry, I probably would just end up trying to just promote more of this uneducated economist stuff. Like, that's probably where I would end up pursuing. I don't know if I would necessarily take on like another job working for somebody else unless I had to. I mean, if I couldn't make this work, then yeah, I would definitely, do sales and something. But, I'm not terribly worried about the company that I work for. I work for, and it's an individual, it's a family owned business. And so and it's owned outright. Like, he doesn't have anything going to banks or anything like that. So, like, he could literally be the only person at his store selling lumber and he could still have a job, right? He could still have his company. So the chances of like bankruptcies and stuff like that coming in to shut the company down, I am that is really far off, like, as far as my concern level, because I worked for companies like that in the past. It's like, as far as the downturn in the sales and stuff like that, as far as the overall company goes, yeah, there's going to be some hard times and stuff, and you kind of work through those. But it's not the first time that this company has gone through recessions. So, I'm not terribly worried about it. All right, moving on. Okay. There are 11 million open jobs in this country, so yeah, you can get a part-time job in addition to your full-time job. Yeah. And that's really what, like, I don't know. I see so many people out there who don't really do much. Like, I mean, they work hard, for 8 hours out of the day, which is, it's a lot to say. I mean, really, you can't really ask anybody else you can't ask anybody to do anything but just go and have a job, right? I mean, it was just like, at least you have a job, you're paying your bills, you're making your way. But as far as like advancing yourself, like really like moving out there and doing something, I find most people don't. Like, they talk a game, they might even like think it a little bit, but as far as like actually taking any kind of action to do anything, to me it seems very rare that people actually do anything. You know, it's not like a requirement in life to try and pursue the most that you possibly can. And I could totally understand where somebody could put their 8 hours in and say, nope, that's it, man, I'm done. I'm playing video games from here because now I'm content and happy with it. And if that's what it is, man, cool. I mean, if that's what makes it for you. But most people don't do that. Most people are like, man, I want to complain about how come the world is, keeps pushing me down or something. And when somebody has like that kind of feeling, they have this like external, like, I'm going to blame the world on this external, then they really never get it to the point, like bring their focus into the point that they can say, okay, man, I'm going to run out there and I'm going to start making things happen for myself. Because what most people end up doing is they're blaming that external. It's just like, once that's done and once that person is out of office and once this law changes or whatever, then my life can be happy, right? And it never will be, right? Because once all those things change, you realize you're still not happy. It's because you're not focused in on yourself. And and I don't know how to quite describe this. People are stagnant, right? Don't be stagnant. Don't, like, I mean, get out there and do something. Even if it's like, just try and go out there and figure out how to make $2 doing something. Yeah. Gold is a store of value, not an investment. Yeah, totally agree. I plan on selling my silver back to the coin shop when it hits $300 an ounce. All right. That is slavery for the first time in my life. I have no debt. You have no idea how good it feels. Yep. When my paycheck goes into my account and 95% of it stays in my account, and every week more money grows. Yeah. Yeah, it is a great feeling. Like, I remember the day that I got out of all my credit card debt. And it was so weird. Like, at the time, like, I remember there was a time I was $20,000 in debt and I had just my regular job or whatever and didn't really have anything else going on, and I had no idea how I was going to get out of that debt. I had broken down cars, bad debt, drinking, you know, it was just like everything I was doing was wrong. Like it was all bad, right? And I thought I was never going to get it. Like that $20,000 seemed like it was so much money. It was so like I tried paying it off or paying on it, and it didn't seem like anything would ever happen. Like I would literally walk down to the bank with $20 bill and put it on my credit card debt and, you know, try to do something. And eventually, like as I was working it down, I got it down to a point where I was stuffing envelopes with cash and I was paying on my debt. And I said to myself, you know, if I can ever get this debt down or if I could ever fill the envelopes up enough that I could pay off the debt, I'm going to do it. And then one day it happened, right? I was like, holy crap, it's here. I can do it. Like I can literally go down to the bank right now and walk out completely debt free without owing anybody anything. So I did it, and I even did a video, and it's on my channel here. And I tell you, after that, it was so amazing. Like the feeling of being out of debt changed the way I was looking and feeling about everything out there. Like all of a sudden, everything was like awesome. Like the view was better, the smell of the coffee was better. The rude people that were around didn't bother me. Like, no, it was just, everything just all of a sudden became better. Like, all the stresses of everything were just, like, gone. They were like, this didn't exist anymore. Life felt good. Felt really, 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 really good. And then, you know, having, like, that timing of it taking place, I was making more money on YouTube, you know, advancing more in my job. Like everything just started getting better and better after that. So I went from like dark days of not figuring out, you know, trying to figure out what the hell it was I was going to do and thinking that I was never going to be able to get out of this, and that basically you just accept the fact that you're just going to be a broke ass for the rest of your life, to one day it's just like $3,000 debt doesn't seem that big, or even $20,000 doesn't seem like an insurmountable amount of money anymore. I mean, it's such a strange difference, you know, and it's only been 5-6 years now. It hasn't even been that long. You know? Very different. All right. Nice work, Nathan Bond. Congrats, bro. Where is the dice? Is that a truck you're in? Yeah, I'm in my S10, my little 2001 S10, and I don't have the dice in here. All right, let's see here. Oil and gas, Northern Alberta. Spend time with your kids. I missed out working 16 hours a day. I avoided. It's just like something I loved. Good night. Never get time back. It's more important. Yeah, I totally agree, and I do take time to spend with the kids. Like, you know, I make it a point that, you know, on the weekends we do stuff together. Freddie is very active. Like, he has after school every week, or every night, he either has a sport or something going on. Like, so he's very active. We're involved in all kinds of stuff going that way. Yeah, I mean, I make it a point, but again, like right now, you know, the family went to town, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to go out and live stream while you guys, because they're just going to go to the pet store or something to get something for the fish tank. So, you know, I was like, well, I'm going to take this opportunity to come out here and do some live stream, you know, and put my video out. So I do try and find the opportunity that would not be taking away necessarily from the family time. But yeah, it's unfortunate it's going to happen. You know, you just can't avoid it. All right. Every decision you've made is why you are precisely where you are right now. Yes, and it's very much in what you are thinking too, right? On a daily basis. You know, like one of the things that I've learned to do, if I want to do a video, like a particular video that I want to put out the next day, is before I go to bed, the 20 minutes before I go to bed, I will study and research into that topic, whatever it is that I want to talk about. And the next day, it's like a flow state. You can, like, the video just easily just comes right out. Like almost almost effortlessly, right? And I found that you can really screw with your subconscious that first 20 minutes or the last 20 minutes before you go to bed and the first 20 minutes when you wake up. That half hour of before and after is incredibly, you can dive deep into your thoughts, into your memories and stuff like that. And so you can put a lot of stuff right there. So if you want to be, I don't know, whatever, funny, if you want to be better stock picker, if you want to, I don't know, just know more about a particular topic or whatever, study those things right before you go to sleep, and then again right when you wake up, and subconsciously it'll just start picking it up, and you will like realize that it's like buried deep into your thoughts and your memories and stuff like that. It's quite unique being able to do that. All right, moving on. Is it possible working for jobs? Well, yeah. I mean, how many jobs? I mean, you can work a lot of jobs. Are you talking about 4 like 9 to 5 jobs? No, of course not. You can't work that many jobs. In fact, working for somebody else is you're guaranteed to be poor your entire life. Like, it doesn't matter how much money you earn per hour. I don't care how much money you earn. There is not enough hours in the day to make a difference, right? Ultimately, you have to figure out a way to make money while you are sleeping, to have money that trickles in when you are not paying attention to it, right? You got to have passive income, right? Money that just comes in, that it doesn't even have to be a lot, right? But it has to be continuous, or it has to be, passive. Like, when you're not paying attention to it, you put a little bit of effort towards it, and then it starts paying you. Whether it's like a rental income or dividend paying stocks or something, like, you got to think in that kind of direction, something I need to put my money towards, something that's going to start paying me. Because again, like, you can't work enough hours in a day. It's just, you just simply can't do it. And you can probably find a good job, and then you can put your hours in every day towards it, and you can work real hard doing that, and then at the end of it you have to spend all your time trying to earn this money. But to me, and to a lot of the other wealthy people out there, I'm not saying I'm wealthy, but the wealthy people that I have talked with and worked with, that's what they do. They look for things that are going to pay them passive income, when they can put some time and effort and energy towards it, but then it starts paying them back. And that's really how you make a lot of money. That's how you end up living free. In fact, Cantillon even said it. There's only 3 people who live independently, and that is the prince, the property owners, and the capitalist who invest into that system. Right? And that's really where I want to be. I want to be that capitalist who invests into the system and make money that way. Like, being a business owner sounds great. Having rental income sounds like a wonderful way of making money, like Lumberjack Jack Landlord does. He's done quite well at it. But that's work. I mean, you talk to Matthew. Matthew works. He works hard. He puts a lot of time and effort into his properties to keep them maintained, and to keep his business operating the way it does. And he's quite successful for doing it. And it shows. That's the type of effort that you need to put in order to have this, to have that sort of thing in your life, to be successful in that sort of way. But working for somebody else, it'll never happen. Yes, quit drinking. Yeah, quit drinking. Yeah, quit drinking is probably one of the greatest things. Like, I have to admit, guys, I miss it occasionally. Like, I miss like sitting around, drinking beers with the guys or something like that. Like, I miss that whole idea. It was a lot of fun, the social interactions and stuff like that. The problem that I have is that when you live in an alcohol-based consciousness, is that it deteriorates your ability to really advance. Like, I'm not saying everybody, it was for me. Like, some people do just fine. Like, they don't have any issues, right? That's totally cool. I didn't. Like, if I drank beer, like, that's what I was going to do. Like, I am not thinking business. I'm not thinking about making money. I'm thinking about drinking beer, right? And that's what I'm going to do. So for a lot of people, that's the way it is. And if that's the case, when you are drinking a lot, you're always in this consciousness, this, alcohol-based consciousness. And it's very difficult to try and advance yourself out of that. All right. You can save all you want. If you make $12 an hour, you still won't have much. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. If you make $12 an hour, you won't have much. But if you can save $6 an hour, right, then you are going to be doing far better than the person who makes $150,000 a year and has nothing left over from it, right? Because you're at least saving $6 an hour. So it's not a matter of how much you make, it's a matter of how much you can save. And true, $12 an hour isn't much, right? And if you have a $12 an hour job, then you probably should be looking for something that's going to be paying you a little bit more. But if you really like your $12 an hour job, require less stuff in your life. If you can require less stuff, then the $12 an hour job may not be that bad for you. And again, it's not a matter of how much you make, it's all about how much you can save. So... did I get another super chat down there? Oh yeah, for sure. Hey, thank you very much, Lumberjack Landlord, for the $5. Appreciate the shout out. You are right on the passive income. It worked, but the money still works while I sleep. That's right. I mean, it's work, and I know just, following some of Matthew's social media stuff, he's working. He's working all the time. It's what's amazing is that I have messaged Matthew. And I don't think it's been but 5 minutes before I get a response from Matthew. How it is that he is able to be up on top of that is just like, it's just amazing. I mean, he is vigilant when it comes to his business. I mean, it's quite impressive, really. But yeah, no, thank you for the $5, man. I really appreciate it. Do you think OnlyFans and drug dealing are good side gigs? Well, I don't think drug dealing is, from somebody who had done it. Like, I mean, I sold weed when I was younger, so, I mean, it's nice to always have $100 in your pocket and a bag of weed, but, is it a good business? No, of course not, man. That's not a good side gig to be in. OnlyFans, I guess. I mean, I mean, who am I to judge, what it is that, people want to pay for the content. Like, if that's what you want to see, then, I mean, it's not me to, say, whether or not that's a good or bad thing. I mean, that's not up to me. I mean, I think about it the same way. I mean, outside of like what I'm doing here, I don't know what the difference would be, right? I mean, obviously the content's quite different, but we're all kind of doing the same thing, trying to get people's attention, right? And to make money for that. So I think OnlyFans is fine. I mean, as far as a good side gig. Now, the way that is done is different. Like, I mean, for me, I would rather have something that's sustainable, something that is going to last me forever, something like, I mean, as long as I'm talking macroeconomics and I'm following the current trends that are happening and I'm able to come out here and speak it, then I'm probably going to be able to continue on with, with what I'm doing. Now, I would imagine that most OnlyFans, like, you're probably referring to the young ladies who are making a lot of money on that, and most young ladies would probably do quite well and end up losing a lot of what it is that they can perform today as far as being able to get that revenue is going to be lost over time, as the appeal for younger women are far higher than they are for older women. So again, that's not a very sustainable thing, but as far as making money right now, yeah, I mean, if you got the time and you got the, ability and the attention out there, go get some money. I mean, who am I to judge whether or not that's done? As far as doing it through illegal practices, I wouldn't do that. Like, nothing. I am such a law-abiding person that I won't even cross the street unless the sign says it's okay. And mainly is because I don't want to have to defend myself against anybody, and especially against law enforcement. I don't want to have to explain myself or identify myself or answer questions, none of that stuff. And so if I know the law and I can avoid from, breaking the law, then I'm going to do that, right? And so selling drugs is not exactly like a legal thing to do. It's going to be becoming a little bit more legal here in Oregon, since drugs are not really, they've been decriminalized, right? A lot of people said that they were legal. They're not legal. They're decriminalized, meaning that you don't serve time for possession and stuff like that. All right. If you have a minimum wage job and are still young-ish, start looking for a trade. If you have a minimum, yeah, I would definitely start looking for a trade. But if you are young, try all kinds of stuff, especially if you're in your 20s. Like if you're in your 20s, that is like the coolest position to be in because nobody really expects a lot out of you. You have all kinds of time ahead of you, so you can really screw up. Like you can mess it up, and it's like, oh man, I really messed that one up. Let's try it again. You don't like. Time is always critical. Like time is the most important thing in the entire world, right? It's the only thing you're limited on, and you can't get back. So it's really important. But screwing up when you're 40 is a hell of a lot riskier than screwing up when you're 20, right? So if you're in your early 20s, I would try all kinds of things. Try businesses, try trades, try as much as you can. And the more you fail, the stronger you're going to get from it. And the more things you try, you're going to find that there's some things that you're going to be better at than others. You might just land right on that one talent or skill or industry that is really calling your name or whatever. But yeah, when you're in your 20s, like, see, the problem with being in your 20s is most people just want to have fun. Like they're like grew up and like got out of their house and they're finally busted free of rules and stuff. So they just want to party it up and hang out with their friends and go and enjoy experiences, which is understandable, but really they're missing out on the greatest opportunity of their lifetime to really set themselves up for a much better life in the future. And most people end up like, just blowing that in when they're in their 20s. I know I did. Alright. If you have a strong hand, easy. I used to drink every day, now I just drink on the weekends. I've seen the difference in my expenses now. Yeah, right? See, that was my problem, is that I used to drink on the weekends. Like I wasn't a daily drinker or anything. I drank on the weekends. And then one day I noticed, I was just like, when did it switch from every weekend to every day? Like, I didn't know when that happened. Like, I didn't even realize that it happened. I'm like, oh my God, I do this every day and have been for a long time. All right. Everyone wants to talk about the money they make, but no one talks about the money they saved. Yeah, that's true. Because, I don't know. Like, to me, I drive this old truck, right? I'm looking over here at this store right there, and there's, 5 newer trucks that are sitting there that are just like nice. I mean, I would love to drive one of those things, but holy moly, the expense on all that stuff, and I'm like, it would just tear me up. And I'm like, man, I can't do it. Like, I couldn't put my time and effort and energy into something like that just to look cool. I mean, a lot of these guys, they're not driving them just to look cool. They actually use them for work and stuff. But really for me, that's what it would be. It would be like, I don't need any vehicles. I got this old S10 and I got an old 99 Toyota Corolla, and they both run down the road just fine, and so, like, to me, it would be painful. It wouldn't be like an exciting moment for me to like, oh yeah, I got a new car. It would be like, oh God, I had to go get a new car. Yeah. Yes, got a comment read. That's funny. All right. You need to be on the right side of the bar. Money just pours into your pocket. Alcohol is still good for sober people. Yeah, that's true. All right. I grew up out west, but moved to the East Coast to build my own house using my own labor. Just about to buy my first property this summer and start the work. Well, good for you, man. That's very ambitious. Did you hear about this lawyer who quit her job to do OnlyFans? She makes more money than her attorney job. Well, that's not surprising. I mean, not all attorneys are kick-ass at it, so, that's not surprising to hear that. Again, like, how much time do you have to do that? Like, the appeal, it diminishes over time, right? That sex appeal, like, generally that is like men who are lonely-ish or whatever, and they're looking at young, attractive women. Like that's the concept there, right? So you can play with that game and be in it, but eventually, you know, the older you get, the less appeal that has, right? And then eventually, you know, you can't compete anymore. So it's not a sustainable thing, right? So as long as you got that plan and game, then cool, whatever. I mean, I guess you could always go back to being an attorney. Yeah. All right. Never trust a beer you can see through. Yeah. Because I used to drink I drank all this strong stuff because we're up here in the Pacific Northwest, so there's a lot of microbrews, and it's just like a big thing around here. So yeah, I used to drink a lot of the dark brews, a lot of the stouts. Yeah, those are my favorite ones. Good evening, everyone. All right, it was a good-looking chick. I would be filthy rich. If I was a good-looking chick, I would be filthy rich. Yeah. Let's see here. OnlyFans, good edge against inflation. Hot attorneys or bust. We all need church. Come on, really? OnlyFans? Yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. The whole porn thing, like, it's not me. Like, I'm not into any of that stuff. I mean, I know that there is a lot of people who are addicted to it, and it psychologically screws them up. Like, they're not right in the head, a lot of these people, because of it. So whether it's an art and that's what you look at it as, I mean, so be it. Me personally, I don't get it, and I'm not into it. Like, I don't know. All right, all good things come to an end, though. Yeah, church is big money. Well, okay, so church is a big money well, it can be, I guess. Just like anything out there, if you got information and you got attention, you can make money, right? That's really what it comes down to. And if you're a church or OnlyFans or on YouTube, I mean, that's how you do it. Information and attention, you make money. And now, I don't look down upon anybody for it. It's just like, if they, I mean, if you can imagine, like, I don't know, I guess I would probably look down upon it if, like, somebody from, like, if there was an OnlyFans, and she was just like, I'm doing this for the betterment of society, and it's a nonprofit, and all the other, like, that's not the concept behind it. Like, they're straight up, hey, I'm doing this for money, and I'm gonna, love it. I have good-looking feet. Does that count? I don't know. Try it. See if it happens. All right. In war, don't girl do having babies. All right. How are you doing? I'm doing awesome, man. Thanks for asking, Chris. All right. Let's see here. There is no such thing as standing still. You are either moving forward or you are sliding backwards on the mountain of life. Oh, yeah, very true, man, right? There is no... I mean, no, I guess there is kind of like, standing still is still moving forward, right? I mean, it's still like you're showing up every day for your job, but you don't advance really anywhere. I mean, I guess that is still moving forward, because the moment that you stop, you would start to slide. So you're right. There is no stagnant. There is no standing still. All right. Let's see here. Do you think giving donations to a church is a good thing? I saw the pastor at a church gamble at a local casino. Hey, man, what he does with his money is his business, right? Like, I mean, I don't gamble, but, if that's what he does with his, so be it. Now, if, like, as far as contributing to an organization that you feel is a benefit to you and your family and the community and all that other stuff, hey, man, I'm totally for that. You do you. So yeah, go for it. And as far as what they end up doing with that, is, hey, you gave it to them, right? You gave it to them so that they could have it for whatever it is that you felt that they were going to do with it. And if they blew it, then don't give them any more money. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So, I mean, it's like I kind of look at it like this. Somebody's begging on the street, right? They're like, please, anything helps, right? They got the sign, and you give them $2, and then they run that $2 over to the mini mart, and they go and get themselves a beer, and you get mad at them. It was like, I gave you that $2 so you can go buy food, right? And it was just like, no, you gave them $2 to do whatever they want with, right? And if they want to go get drunk, that's their business, right? I mean, I would appreciate it if they went and got food, but if they decided to go get high instead, that's what they want to do. That's why they're asking for the $2. This is what they're gonna do with it. You don't have to give them $2, right? Now, if you give them $2 and then expect them to do a particular thing with it, then you're living on expectations, right? Living on the external. Here, you'll make me happy if you do this. It's just like, that's not the way it works. Okay. Be the gray man. Blend in. Yeah. No, I don't know what you might be referring to, but I stand out. Like, when I walk into a room, I'm not trying to be the one noticed, but I'm not the one hiding in the corner, right? I am not going to be the one who wasn't noticed being there. And I make myself present, right? I make myself present. I make myself, in the room, right? And I don't have to be the center of attention of it, but I am not going to hide, right? And I'm not going to not be noticed. If I say something, I mean, I expect it to be heard. I wouldn't just mindlessly say stuff. So no, I don't blend in. Don't blend in. Stand out. Do you really believe the Fed Reserve is independent of the federal government? Who has the guns and the CIA and the ability to arrest? Does the Fed have that? Does the Federal Reserve have the CIA? I'm not sure. I mean, this is like, the argument isn't quite fitting here, do I believe that the Federal Reserve is independent of the federal government? Yes, I do. Yes, I believe that they are independent of the federal government. There are appointed people from the government that sit on the Federal Reserve Board, but as far as the Federal Reserve itself, yes, I do believe that acts independently. Now, how much behind the scenes kind of thing that's going on through, like, say, the Council on Foreign Relations or the World Economic Forum or stuff like that, that's a whole other story, like, that we're talking about. But I'm just talking about the system in which that is established and written into law the way it is. Like, what these guys are doing, as far as the elitists behind the curtains or whatever, I believe that there is, I believe that the New World Order powers are much more prevalent than anybody ever knows, right? I mean, that's pretty obvious, and the Federal Reserve is definitely in the heart of that. So, I mean, yes, no, I don't know. I'm going to live in one day. I don't know what he's talking about. House? All right. Yeah. It has a turret dormer on the front. Okay, how does the U.S. war with China, Russia impact economy local and globally? Oh, I mean, that's a question. I mean, we could just go on all day and all afternoon about. I mean, okay, so how about, like, just think about it on this kind of idea. If the war was to end, like, next week, like, all of a sudden, Monday morning we get up and they're like, hey, everybody's like pulling out. Everybody's going home, right? And the war and the fighting is not nearly as much, and everybody's like, chilling, and everybody's going home, right? And I mean, I don't know what that's supposed to look like, but let's just say something like that is happening. How do you think the markets would react to that information? Like, do you think they would be pretty excited about that? Do you think, like, there would be market rally taking place? Do you think, like, the idea of doing business, like people signing contracts to do business, do you think that would become a little bit more prevalent? Right. See, when you have the war going on, people get nervous. Right? So how does that impact the economy? Well, it impacts dramatically. Like, if you're nervous about starting businesses, investing, all the other stuff because this war is taking place, well, then that's like again, it's kind of like almost like being in a toxic relationship, right? You're not feeling good about this. You don't know what to do. You're frustrated about a lot of the things that are going on out there. Well, remove the war from it. How would you feel? Right? You'd feel like excited about things. Man, things are going to be happening. You're going to be moving, right? So that's really how I kind of look at this war and, how it impacts the economy. It's very much like that. It's pressure, right? It makes it more difficult, makes it very nervous, makes people want to get into safe havens, makes gold more appealing. These are like, what would you do if you were, living somewhere, over near the, you know, near one of these hot zones or something like that? How is your decisions as far as how you're going to deal with your life and savings and your family and stuff like that? I mean, how are these people going to react to this, to this kind of environment? And then what happens when it switches? Like all of a sudden it's over, they don't have this threat anymore. Like, oh my gosh, now what? And all this activity starts to take place from it. And those are the type of things that I look for. It's like you can pick into like the little things, like, oh, the oil, like just pick oil, or we'll talk about grain, and just talk about how you know grain shipments, depleted or make it difficult, or start to expand, or what. There's a lot of little tiny pieces of that you can really talk about. But I just think about like the overall feeling that people have when there's a major war taking place, or the threat of it growing bigger, is that it puts that pressure onto people to not want to participate. Remove that, people want to participate. All right. Nah, better not have feelings if you go in trades. Yeah, that's what a lot of it is. You really have to be pretty systematic about it and not be like emotional about your money in trades. Yeah, UE, because for the first time in your life you weren't a slave. It feels good to be free. It really does. I mean, and it's not just being debt free. It's also like, again, like having, at the time when I paid off the credit cards, I mean, YouTube was just really getting started for me. But it was just like, wow, I have this way of creating or generating money outside of my job. And that felt really, really good. That felt good to have that. And even today, now, it's like, it's very freeing to know that, like, okay, so something does happen at work, where it goes, something happens where I get laid off or something like that. Well, I can at least, generate some money here on YouTube, and same thing. What if something happens with YouTube, for whatever reason, YouTube decides that, they're going to ban me or something like that, and I end up losing my YouTube. Well, I still got a job, right? And that's really, to me, has been very freeing. Although it occupies a lot of my time to show up every day for work, and then also try to keep the content and the channel, you know, fresh and moving and stuff. Although that takes a lot of time, it's very freeing for me in the fact that I don't have to stress about anything. Like, I don't have to stress about paying the bills, or stress about, whether or not I'm going to be, deep in debt again next month or something like that. Like, that stress is gone away. And yeah, talk about freeing. That's incredibly freeing. It is occupying, like, it does take a lot of time, but it's freeing, like, psychologically. It's very freeing. Do you think selling weed is better than working at a fast food restaurant? No, I don't. I don't think doing anything illegal is better than doing something legal. All right? I don't think that ever. Um, change oil, run it till it dies. Yeah, bought a Tesla, saved about $1,000 in gas so far. Yeah, how much did he make in payments and interest? Oh, never mind. All right. If he can't upgrade the wife, he's not upgrading the vehicle. The wife, he's not. I don't know. I got a pretty good wife. Like, I don't know. If my vehicle matched the quality of wife, I would be driving a really nice vehicle. All right. Bring back the QE, the quantitative easing. Ugh. All right. Why does war in China, Russia impact the economy local? We already talked about that. Okay. U.S. getting rid of old weapons. Are you in it to win it? There you go. The world is full of simps. Ladies, get that money. Yeah. I mean, that's true. Like I don't know. There's a few guys that I've, talked with, and like, I mean, what do I know? I've been married since I was 8, I've been with my wife since I was 18, but I listen to the way some of these guys talk, and I'm like, you guys need to get your heads together, because I don't know where it is that you're thinking that women are attracted to that kind of behavior, but you're completely wrong, and I don't know. I don't want to get into it because it's not none of my business. Anyway, what's up, EU community, the UE community? There we go. No one is saying anything about that. We have no skilled labor out here anymore. We need more tradesmen. Yeah. Those who denied it supplied it. Expensive vehicles are the worst investment you'll ever make. Yeah. I have 7 years sober from alcohol. Cheers. Yeah, that's about me too. Mr. Lincoln Stinkin. Like the name, man. Yeah, I'm about 7 years into it as well. I don't remember like the last drink that I had. I don't remember like the last episode or whatever you want to call it. Like, I don't remember that. I just gave up. Like, I just quit one day. I was mad, and I was just like, I'm not doing this anymore. And I don't remember it. Like, I don't remember the last time. Which is good, because I don't think about it. Like, I don't think about that day or the date or anything else about it. It's just like, that was something that happened back in the day, and now I don't it's not something that is occupying my life anymore. But it feels good to have been that long. 7 years. It's amazing, because there was a time in my life I didn't think that I would ever not drink, and now here it is 7 years later. It's just like, wow, it's been 7 years since I've had anything to drink. I mean, geez, I didn't even know anybody would even know what kind of Simon there would be without alcohol. Do you exercise your Second Amendment rights? Yes, absolutely. I'm a firm believer in all the rights, especially the Second Amendment. First and Second Amendment are very important, the freedom of speech and the right to bear arms. Some of these rights, they get kind of a little obscured, the right not to have to quarter troops unless during a time of war. I mean, is that one really any kind of concern of anybody? It's the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment is probably the most important right for everybody to memorize, to know it by heart, right? Because all the rest of them, they're important to understand, but it's the Fourth Amendment that really protects you at the time, right? And you should really memorize it, right? The rights of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects from unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons and things to be seized. Show me the warrant, right? That right there is probably the most important one to understand and know, because anytime that you are confronted by any authority out there, right, and they ask you questions, who are you, where you been, what are you doing, right, you don't have to answer any of that stuff. You can answer rights of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects, right? This is your right. It is up to you to defend it at the time that it's being infringed upon, right? So there's no little guy or, system out there that's going to pop out and say, you know what, wait a minute, stop, guys. Mr. Police Officer, Mr. Suspect here, whatever, right? I think there's a violation of rights taking place here. We need to consider this. Like, nobody comes out and does that. You are the one who does that. You are responsible for your rights. Not the police, not anybody else out there. You are it. And so if you don't understand your rights, right, then you don't have any. That's it, plain and simple. All right. So it is absolutely critical to understand what it is that your rights are. The first 10 amendments to the Constitution should be ingrained into every single one of us, right? And that's the reason why I don't even cross the street unless the sign says it's okay, because I don't want to have to defend that thing, right? Like if the sign says it's okay, I'm going to cross the street. And if, if I get stopped and say, hey, what are you doing? I'll be like, hey, have a nice day, sir. Unless you're accusing me of committing a crime or about to commit a crime, I'm not sticking around for any of this stuff, right? You don't have to answer questions and I'm not being detained, right? So understanding those things is the way that you are actually an American, right? Not one of these like, I have the right to free healthcare, some shit like that. Like, this is absolutely not a right. Like, people have no clue about rights when they start talking in such fashions. I have a right to a good job or something like that. No, those are not rights. That's not even remotely close to a right. And anybody who confuses those things with rights are delusional and they don't deserve to have any rights, right? Because only people who deserve to have rights are those who actually understand them. All right. Let's see here. Anyone that wants to build a house on the cheap, a pier and beam foundation is a fraction of the price of other methods. Good luck out there. All right. Will there be an everything crash? I think there's going to be a pretty big crash in just about everything out there. I mean, there's going to be some stuff that do quite well, but the safe haven type of things. But as far as anything that needs a lot of leverage, like a lot of taking out of debt to purchase cars, houses, a lot of those type of asset type of things, anything that takes out a lot of debt in order to create the asset price elevation, those are going to suffer dramatically from it. But those that don't, like, get their valuation from debt, like, basically gold and silver type of things, bullets, these are the type of things that I feel are going to be holding on to their value, right? Things of use, things of necessities, cars, TVs, exercise equipment, like that's not stuff of necessity. Well, I guess exercise equipment could be a necessity for some people, but those type of things are not going to be holding their value. People are going to care less about that stuff, right? They're going to be more worried about food, protection, stability, things like that. Sustainable doesn't exist. That's right. Okay. There's that only fat chick that's loaded that announced she's going to start family content like anyone cares. Okay. Well, you never know. I mean, she might start some family content that people care about. You don't know that. Yeah. All right. Can you explain the second and the 10th going from inverted to back to normal spread? Right now, I would not be looking at the U.S. Treasury market. I would not be looking. I mean, it's definitely something that's telling a tale. But right now, it is so obscured. I lost connection here. Right now, that market is so obscured that it is very difficult to say, like, hey, this 2 year, 10 years is the market, indicating that there's a, concern of a recession coming into the future. This is a very common statement, but we also have to think, like, the Federal Reserve is unwinding a balance sheet. They're also expanding a balance sheet at the exact same time. So, I mean, are they unloading these treasuries while at the same time expanding their balance sheet to loan money to some of these banks from the bank funding, or the bank term funding program? All that is going to be, like, they should be selling assets, but they're not. They're using those assets as collateral to borrow money, right? So, like, why is the markets behaving the way they are when you have so much obscurity out there? You have to think, man, what is it? Like, is it the banks that are doing this? Is it the market that's, worried about it? Is it the Fed and the unwinding of the balance sheet? So all that stuff out there is going to make it very difficult to try and look at, like, the U.S. Treasuries and say, why is this happening right now? Or is it an indicator of something? It generally is, yes. But as of right now, I mean, I don't know, the volatility in it and all that, it would be very difficult for me to, like, say, hey, this is what's happening with that. In time, we'll figure it out. Like, come back in a couple of weeks and we'll be like, hey, this is what's going on in the banking system that created all this stuff that's going on. That might come out and, we'll have a better understanding of it. But yeah, like, I mean, I can't imagine what must be going through the Fed meetings right now to try and like deal with the banking crisis that's coming. The sovereign and corporate debt crisis that's about ready to unfold is going to be unreal. It's like, I mean, it's almost to the point like, uh, I don't want to say it's entertaining, but it's almost entertaining. Like I want to see what the Fed has. Like I was like, what is the tool? What is it you're gonna do? What is the special purpose vehicle or something that you're gonna do to fix this? What is the UBI? How are you gonna do it? Like how are you gonna introduce this stuff? Like it's almost exciting for me to watch it. And even though I know how bad it really is, and I don't want to be like, like, hey, look at that train wreck going on over there. I don't want to be like that, but that's really how it kind of feels to me right now. I like Coos Bay, Oregon. Yeah, Coos Bay is a pretty cool place. All right. Anyone else stacking silver? We all stacking silver. Well, maybe not all of us, but most of us are. Hold up, I'm feeding my dog. What time is it? Oh, it's 4 o'clock. I'm going to have to get going, guys. I got to go call bingo here. I'll give it another 5-10 minutes. The world is rejecting the dollar. Let's see. Pastor gambling may have insider information. Gray man is a smart way to be. I don't know. Maybe. I guess that works out for you, but I ain't blending in. I'm gonna get out there and I'm gonna get noticed. I'm gonna make some noise. Somehow the politicians are exceeding market returns. I question that. Is our country bankrupt? Press 1 for yes, press 2 for no. Yeah. I do too, but the question makes wonder if the government doesn't protect them. The government, I don't know, are you talking about rights or something like that? The government doesn't protect rights. Right? That's not, the government doesn't establish rights. The government doesn't protect rights. That's not the government. In fact, our rights are to protect us from government, right? That's really what the rights are. It was rights. Hey, these are your rights, regardless of government, right? They don't get to determine whether or not you have rights, right? That's not up to them, right? These are our rights, and it's to protect us from them. And once like, well, the government needs to come in and protect our rights from this. No, the government doesn't need to come in and protect you. In fact, I would rather have the government not protecting my rights and me protecting my rights, because government can't do it. The Fed is a corporation. It is instead of trading. Let's see here. Has anyone read The Richest Man in Babylon? Yeah, actually, that is one of the few books. Well, I don't know if I completed it, but I do have that book at home, and I have read quite a bit of it. It's a good one. For learning not to spend your money frivolously and actually to invest it young. It's a great book for teaching kids that. All right, bankruptcy means you can't repay your creditors. We aren't that far gone yet, but fatal wound has already been delivered. Dead man walking for another 2-3 decades. Yeah, well, I mean, we can't, like the Federal Reserve, ultimately, if you have a deficit spending, then you are saying right there that we can't pay our bills. So we have to go deeper into debt, like beyond what it is that we pull in for our money. Like a lot of people say that Bill Clinton fixed the debt problem. That's not true. The Clinton administration fixed the deficit problem, right? We were still majorly in debt, but we were making our debt payment. Right? Deficit is when you're going much beyond what it is that you can afford to pay your debts with. So you got to go deeper and deeper. It's like taking out ever increasing amounts of credit card debt. Right? So that's really where like a lot of it is the major problem is from that deficit. So if you're going into deficit spending, you're basically saying I can't pay my bills because I got to keep going on this credit card. That isn't going to change, right? That part is like from now on. So the idea that the country can't operate in bankruptcy, it's been operating in bankruptcy this entire time, right? How long it can continue, I don't know, but it seems to have always been that way, at least since since 1913, but really since before that. The only time the country was never not in debt was Andrew Jackson, I think that was the one time that the country was actually like not in debt. Yeah, it was for a very short time. Yeah, no more spider web. Yeah. All right. What's up? Do you see gold at 2,500 and silver at 30 or silver at 31st? I don't know. Like I try not to do market calls like that because really it would just be like just some number I'm pulling out of nowhere. Um, I really don't know where those are going. I used to think that silver was going to be a very very outstanding performing asset to have. It was something that I very much thought. However, now I don't really see it that way. I think the potential for it to be there is there. The only problem with it is that the paper manipulation in order to keep silver suppressed is so strong out there that I find it very difficult for the idea that the crashing of like JP Morgan buy silver campaign, kind of thing. I don't think that's possible, right? There was a time I did, where because JP Morgan had such a huge silver short position, we were all going to buy up a bunch of physical silver, driving the prices up, and then eventually crashing their short position because they wouldn't be able to cover it all. What I found was that I was buying silver very expensive, and a lot of these people who were pushing that were selling silver with their face on it. So to me, it was a major pump and dump thing that was happening out there. I don't look at silver as something that's going to be like this major profitable thing to me. Like I'm going to be driving like fancy cars because of my silver purchases that I made. I don't see it like that. It's an insurance policy, so that's what I look at it as. Whether it's $30 or $28 or $38 or whatever, that part doesn't really mean anything to me. I don't intend on selling it for that kind of purpose. I'm planning on using it in case I need it for emergency purposes. So whether it's $30 an ounce or whatever, it doesn't make any difference to me. It's more about how much you have, and I just look at it, that's insurance policy. So whether it's 30 or 25, doesn't mean anything. All right. What is your stance on gold versus Bitcoin? Okay, great question. So here you go. You got two items that are almost the same in idea, right? I mean, outside of the government, anonymous, kind of whatever. You have these things that are very similar. You got physical gold, and then you got like a digital gold, right? Nice thing about digital gold is you get to make a transaction with anybody anywhere in the entire world so long as they have internet access and there's nothing anybody can do about it. Pretty neat little feature about having that. Gold, very awesome, very similar in the sense that you can do a transaction outside of government, outside of bank, but you can't do it like really easily without like some kind of insurance or risk to get that physical gold to the other party, right? So they're very similar in a sense. Now we have to think, well, which one is better? Like which one really is better, right? And that's really in a matter of an opinion, right? I mean, I can see how both of them can be better in a lot of ways and how both of them can be worse in a lot of ways. Now I have to think, okay, you got Bitcoin and you have gold. Bitcoin cannot exist without gold. Like gold and silver pretty much operates our entire life. All electronics, computers, communications, all this stuff needs precious metals in order to operate. Bitcoin will not operate without gold. Gold can operate plenty without Bitcoin. Gold wins. All right. I feel like silver has a better profit margin. Yeah, it can. Nathan, did he dump every saved dollar into Apple stock because otherwise that's mathematically impossible? Huh, I wonder what you guys are talking about. All right. If you haven't, you should check out Mark Moss. He does very thorough presentation about many similar topics. Yeah, I met Mark Moss personally. I've talked with him quite a bit. Well, I mean, I talked to him, at the Rebel Capitalist anyway. I haven't, like emailed him or anything like that. But yeah, Mark Moss is, I mean, that dude, his presentation at the Rebel Capitalist was awesome. I mean, it was like, it was like a full-on awesome show. Like he did an hour presentation that was just entertaining. It had awesome, like this, like his PowerPoint presentation had lots of graphs and images and just really like, great, just a great presentation altogether. And he was incredibly entertaining while he was doing it. One of the best parts of um, that event was Mark Moss's presentation. All right. Never underestimate America's ability to continually perpetuate the incredible Ponzi scheme. Let it burn. I don't like paying a mortgage. Have you ever heard of ethanol fuel cell boilers to power a home in the Northwest? They are a great energy source in colder climates. I really haven't. All right. Since we're going into recession, is it good to hold cash, and what happens if money loses value? Okay, well, I mean that's the chance you take. I mean that's risk. There's risk in everything, right? But you think about it. Are you thinking that there's not going to be a recession? Like, I mean, is that like part of the idea is that if there's no recession out there, then what should I have done? Right? Because if there is a recession, what is that going to look like? Like, is it a recession in which that everybody loses their jobs and like assets stay elevated? Is that possible? Is that even like, possible that that could happen? To me, like when I think of a recession, to me, a recession means everything has gone on sale. That's what it says to me. It's like, people can't afford to take out loans to buy all these things. And people are trying to pay off their debts, so they're selling off a lot of their frivolous toys for cheap, right? To me, a recession means everything goes on sale. If things are on sale, you need cash. You don't want to sell something else in order to have the cash to buy this. You need the cash on hand. And so, yeah, to me, like the next year, I have absolutely no problem stacking up as much cash or trying to get into a cash position to take advantage of some of these things that I think are going to be happening. I mean, this downturn is going to, like, you think about it. How many toys were purchased over the last couple of years? Like, just whatever little toys, that people buy, whatever, like all the stuff. And how much debt do people have? Well, when it comes into a time when the flow of money starts to get restricted and you're having trouble accessing this money to pay your debts, well, then what do? You're going to grab one of your toys and sell it, right? That's what the recession looks like. That's what I'm anticipating. All right, guys, I'm going to give it another 5 minutes and I'm going to head out, go call some bingo. All right. Did I get another super chat down there somewhere that I miss? No, I guess I didn't. Make sure I got the last one. Yeah, it must have been Lumberjack. Okay, cool. Oh, let's go down to the bottom here. So many comments. You guys are awesome. Okay. Debt-free doesn't make you financially free. Ask a homeless person. No, you're right. Debt-free doesn't. But now you think about it. A homeless person is by far the freest individual in the entire world, right? No responsibilities, no expectations, nothing, right? They could stand there or not. They are free to do whatever it is that they want to do. So you can look at a homeless person and say like, oh man, they got it terribly bad. But then you can also say they are absolutely abundant in freedom, right? So what do you do with that? You start giving up some of your freedom for security. A lot of us old guys quit drinking. Yeah, I totally agree. It seems to be like, you kind of figure it out after a while. And, what's really sad is that, I see a lot of the old timers who don't quit. And, like at one point in their life, they may have gotten a divorce or something, and they never really nothing happened. They just, they lived in their apartment, they sat down at the bar and drank, and then they never did anything, and it's sad. to see that happen. Anyway. Guess maybe that was what I was worried about. Other currencies I would carry other than the US dollar is monopoly money. Once you pass go, collect $200. Alrighty, everybody. It has been awesome hanging out with you for the last 2 hours. You're very cool. Doing $72.96 in super chats. Always so supportive, like always. I so much appreciate that. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for all the comments, all the thumbs up. Thank you for being supportive of the channel. And thank you for helping all of us, including myself, learn more about economics. Yeah, it's good times. All right, Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.